Hello, everyone. Here we are for another amazing episode of Love, Laughs, and Lessons. We've got an awesome guest today, and Denise is going to go ahead and introduce her right now.
Absolutely. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Eri Kardos, an internationally acclaimed speaker, best-selling author, transformative coach in love and relationship. Eri's global impact extends across 6 continents, where she has empowered thousands through her dynamic workshops and private coaching. A favorite among Fortune 500 giants like Amazon and Microsoft, Eri brings a unique blend of science and somatic-based methods to rekindle passion and dissolve conflict in relationships, transforming them into tools for profound professional and personal growth. Eri is the visionary founder of Relearn Love, LLC, where she specializes in enhancing the influence of leaders in the boardroom by deepening connection in their personal lives. Her approach is designed to ignite passion and intimacy while improving communication, thereby empowering her clients to achieve balanced success in every aspect of their lives. She's also the author of a best-selling book, Relationship Agreements, a simple and effective guide for strengthening communication, reducing conflict, and increasing intimacy to help you design your ideal relationship. That is sounding delicious. All the things, right?
Thanks.
Eri's insights are both practical and profound. Her transition from a seasoned leadership development professional at Amazon to a celebrated relationship coach began as she started addressing the personal challenges of executives, fostering significant improvements in their focus, energy, and team dynamics. Eri, we are super excited to have you. I really want to hear your story. I don't want to give away too much because I want you to tell it. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with all of you. So good. So
Yeah.
where do we begin? Where do we begin?
Start with how your story ended up in Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Yeah, sure. So, my husband and I have been together for a while. There's so many good stories in this. We could talk for days, but we have had some really unique adventures together over time. And for us, I just want to share a little bit about our story, which leads into Chicken Soup for the Soul. So he and I met and very instantly we thought, oh my gosh, we're like the same person in a different body. This is so easy. Like, of course we want to do life together. And we wanted to start a family. So we started a family very quickly. And soon through parenting and life, we discovered, oh no, you're like the exact opposite of me in pretty much everything, other than we really like the same, like a lot of the same things like traveling and food and parenting and things like that. But when it came down to our personalities and some of our values, it was just very different. And we needed to figure out, what does this mean? And on top of that, we were not what we were supposed to marry, right? So my husband was raised in a very traditional Hindu family, and I was raised in a very traditional Christian family. Both of us from the Midwest of America, and he was supposed to marry a woman from the state of Gujarat in India, who's from one of 5 villages, and is a virgin and has one of these engineering or doctor degree. And guess what? He fell in love with me, and I am obviously not those things, but we have so many other things in common. And through our journeys, each of us had been disowned by our parents at different points in time, and this was his. So when he chose to be with me, it was like, whoa, and it caused a big divide. But through our journey, through our love, through our continuously leaning into what is possible together with our family, with our community, a lot of things shifted. And we're on speaking tour right now. We do this every year with our kiddos. And we just finished staying for a full month at my parent-in-law's house. And it wasn't until last year that I actually met my mother-in-law. And it was so beautiful. And this is our ninth year anniversary this year. So we've done so much healing. And part of that is what was shared in Chicken Soup for the Soul, the miracle of love, because we really just believe that love can be so transformative, and that we don't give each other enough permission to really create what we want. It's like we get sold on a story of, oh, this is what Disney said we should be going after. All we have to do is find our prince or princess charming and ride off into the sunset. It's all going to be easy, right? And it's like, well, finding your beloved or your beloveds, whatever your style may be, can be really, really challenging. And then on top of it, once you commit to long term, that's when all the really juicy adventures begin. And that's what we've had to navigate together and through our journey. And then also work with clients. We've just learned so much and we get to share that with the world.
Amazing.
That is
Yeah.
amazing. You just blew my mind. 9 years together, you said, and you just met your mother-in-law for the first time?
Last year I met her in person, like we actually talked. And then this year we've done so much beautiful work. We just stayed at her house for the last month. And we use that as our hub and we go in and out. We were speaking on a cruise in the Caribbean and traveling to all these different cities, and we get to keep coming back and having her incredible home cooked food. And she's such an amazing grandma. And it's been such a journey and it's so beautiful. And I think they think we're really crazy, but they love us, and that's wonderful.
Why do
The
they think
one,
you're crazy?
what's the one, if you had to identify one thing that was most powerful and moved the needle, what would you say it was?
For the relationship with our parents,
Yeah, with your in-laws.
yeah, I would say staying curious and like staying grounded in ourselves and staying curious and open are like the big ingredients that have helped us with many of these situations, because it's so easy to be defensive, right? We all have trauma, we all have triggers, especially with our parents. And there are certain buttons they can push, right? And for us, it's like, okay, well, we're not going to play that game. We're not going to keep playing the trauma response game over and over again. And instead, we're going to stay open and say, hey, we're here and we'd love to talk. And we're happy to tell you about who we are and know you and who you are today, because you're not the same people that were raising us, right? Like they've changed, we've changed. Here we go. And let's just keep staying away from judgment whenever we notice that those judgments come up or we notice that we're feeling judged. That's the story we're creating of what we're feeling judged. Okay, well, what does that mean? What does it mean to you? What are you trying to say, mom? What do you really need right now? Okay, great. Let's find a way where we can have a win-win situation for us. And that has just been over and over again so incredibly healing.
Yeah. Taking the high road all the time is right.
Sometimes I don't want to.
That's right.
And even if you don't sometimes, I feel like there's always, right, there's hopefully more opportunity for a retake for
Yeah.
repair.
Yes. And, I think we've learned so much that we get to, it's the same relationship tools are relationship tools, right? My husband and I both teach things around parenting. We both go into corporations and teach leadership skills. We work with couples and relationships and singles who want to be in relationships. And you know what? The tools are almost all the same across the board. We just didn't learn them growing up. And that's one of the main reasons why I started Relearn Love. It's like you already learned love. You learned it before the age of 7. You had an ingrained model in your system and your nervous system has this idea of what we're looking for, whether that's the healthiest thing for us, right? And then we grow up and those things aren't serving us anymore. Those stories aren't serving us. And the ways of handling conflict or the ways of expressing feedback or the ways of receiving love just don't work for us. So I just invite the world to have a new approach. And what is it like to relearn love, to consciously choose to learn the things that we didn't learn growing up, schools didn't teach it to us. Chances are your parents weren't perfect or didn't model perfection around this all the time, and that's okay. They did the best they could with the tools they had. But now we get to learn better tools. There's so much science around this. There's so many incredible resources like this podcast, right? There where people can come and learn things that will actually work.
Like what?
Like what? I want to
Right.
ask you guys this too. I'm like, I would say one of in what I teach in the Relearn Love model, there's 4 different C's, 4 steps. And the first step is to get really curious. A lot of people don't even get curious. They just believe like, this is the way that it is. This is the way that my relationship is. This is the way that my life is going to be. And so we just settled for this meh story. And that keeps us so stuck. And I know some couples who are very happy with, we work all day, we come home, we do Netflix and go to sleep. And that relationship is fine for them. But most of the people, I'm guessing if anybody is listening to this, that's not them, right? That you really want to have something that lights you up. And that is this thing that part of you knows is possible, but doesn't know how to get it, right? So we first get really curious. And I teach my clients, how do we get curious? How do we start to ask the big questions and explore that together? And then from that curiosity, we begin to move into cultivating knowledge. And when we cultivate knowledge, it's like, where do we go and learn the tools that actually work? Because so many people think that love is still a fluffy subject, and it's just not. We have so many decades and decades of incredible research out there that show us exactly what kind of tools work and what we need to learn around our emotions and how to communicate. So if we learn those things and we work with people that are the right fit for us, it's like, wow, okay, so much is possible. But this is the very cerebral part, right? Everybody, I know, I'm guessing that there's at least a few hands would go up if I said, who here is a relationship or a personal development junkie, right? It's like, oh, I listen to the podcast, I read all the books, right? But when it comes to actually making the transformation, a lot of times this is where people fall off. It's like, it's fun to be a student, but then applying it is hard. Then we move into the third C, and that's the change. That's where we take the things we learned and we're really bringing them down to our bodies and our hearts. We're integrating those tools and we're learning these new ways. And so it's awkward, right? Learning a new skill is so awkward, or can be. And it can be frustrating. It's like you've been doing something one way for decades. And now I'm asking you to do it a different way to get the results you actually want. And if you're in partnership, then we're asking the same thing of your partner. And so now you got two people trying to learn this thing together. And it takes time and patience. I remember when Jamin and I, my husband's name is Jamin Patel, when Jamin and I got together, when we started dating, I said, okay, one of the requirements of dating me, because I was already a relationship coach, I said, is you have to learn these 3 tools. And he was learning them. We would like read through them. We'd even like practice them. But when it came to really applying them in life situations, he just wouldn't do it. I remember him saying once, like an offhand comment of like, babe, nobody talks this way. and, and I, kind of chuckled. I'm like, you're right. I wish people did. Right. And then we got into this huge argument on the phone one day. I remember I was at home in Seattle at the time. We were living in Seattle, and he was coming back from speaking somewhere, and he was calling from Vegas. I didn't even know what we were fighting about, but I got so triggered and he was getting triggered. But like I call it in the sandbox. Like I was already the one who was triggered. And he kept doing the same thing he would normally do, which wasn't getting the result he wanted. And all my defenses were going up. And I'm just like, screw you. Like, I don't even want to talk to you. Like, no. And then he remembered the tool. And for whatever reason, he decided to use the tool. And he just said these words that melted all my defenses. And it felt like my wall just collapsed. And I had this exposed, vulnerable underbelly. And I just started crying. And I'm like, I just really miss you. And what would have been a fight where maybe he would have come home, in an hour or something, or a couple hours, and walked in the room, and I would have been like, screw you, welcome home, like that could have happened, right? That probably would have happened if we had used our regular patterns. But instead, he came home and we were in this deep connection, this embrace. And when he was holding me, he's like, why doesn't everyone talk like this? And I was like, yeah, that's what I want. I want there to just be much faster healing. We're all going to get triggered. Like, I know all the tools and I get triggered, right? And that's okay. It's like, how do we come back into repair with love and compassion for each other's separate truths and our own life experiences? And so that's the change part. And then from the change, we move into the last piece, which is so important, which is celebration. And celebration just is I feel like a lost art, and something that every tribal culture around the world knows how to do, and involves it in their lives. Like, you go on this hero's journey and you come back and you've used the tool, you did the thing, you broke the generations, probably the generational patterns of just the not working, these unhealthy patterns. So you broke it, and maybe it was just one time, but that's worth celebrating, so that it becomes ingrained in our nervous system that, oh, we can do this and we can achieve the result that we want. So I teach my clients how to celebrate. And it's like, and it could be something really simple of like, we're gonna have a little dance party in the kitchen. Or it may be a really meaningful sit down and reflection. Really, wow, let's come to each other with a place of gratitude and joy of like, wow, we did this super hard thing and here we are on the other side. And then when you hit another place of, oh, wow, we're stuck again, we hit a new place where we didn't learn about how to handle this well, we get to be curious again. The whole cycle starts over again. But I find there's instead of this being a band-aid approach, it goes more for the heart, and it really shifts how people show up. And then when they're doing things differently, then their kids see them doing things differently, or their communities or coworkers. So we're like, what are you doing? And you get to share that. That has a huge ripple effect. You know, we do fight in front of our children. We don't run away from the fight. And I ask people, like, do you fight in front of your kids? Most people are like, no, or they try not to, right? Or they're ashamed that they do. And it's because most people, I think, are fighting in this model that doesn't work, right? There's violence, or there's yelling, or there's, you know, it could be so many different things, or attacking, or running away. You know, in my house, you could just feel the tension growing up. You just feel like something's not okay. And then my parents would disappear down to the basement, and then they would, you know, come back up an hour later. You could sometimes hear shouting, but you didn't know what it was. And then they come up and magically everything is better. It's like, where are we ever going to learn how to handle big emotions like conflict
No.
if not from our families, right? And
Right.
so, you know, we know how to fight in a healthy way. We know how to handle conflict and have these discussions for repair, and we do them in front of our kids. And we don't say, come sit down and listen to us. We just don't leave the room. And then afterwards, we do invite them in, and we say, hey, what did you hear? How are you feeling? What do you need? What does this mean to you? And we get to ask these questions and see if there's any repair that they need, or anything that they were interpreting in a way that felt scary to them. It's amazing, because I want them to take these tools, and I see them using it with their friends. I'm like, this is so cool. What if we all did this?
There would be a lot less suffering in the world.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Fights, oh, you know, it's like they go on way too long.
Way too long.
And all we want to do is reconnect, and then the pathway, you just don't know, where is it, where's the path, how do I get there? And it's so important for us to learn these skills.
So important. So important. So that was a lot. I just threw a lot out, but
No,
that's
that
Yeah,
was
so
delicious.
so it's curiosity,
cultivate
cultivation,
knowledge. Yeah. Change and
Change
celebration.
and celebration.
Yeah.
yeah,
And the
that's good.
hardest part, it sounded like, was the change. Yes.
I feel like for most people that's the hardest part, but some people never get curious,
It's easy.
right?
Never
Like they
curious to
stay in a
start.
place of judgment,
Yes.
right? Of either judging or feeling judged, which both of them keep you stuck, right?
Yeah.
And then we get to cultivate knowledge, and I see a lot of people get stuck there because there's so many resources. And it's like, which ones do you go with? How do you know where to turn for what actually works? And then celebration, we're all stuck in this rat race, right? Of like, it's never good enough. So as soon as you finish one thing, it's like, okay, on to the next. And then we never learn. We just keep repeating the same thing over if you don't let it land, or if you don't integrate it into your system. So I think every single phase has its own challenges. But I think the most sticky for most people is the change part.
Yeah. Interesting. I
Yeah.
see your wheels turning, Frankie. What's going on?
Oh, so
Yeah.
many thoughts. I'm just thinking, like, I wonder, do most people that you work with, are they of a certain generation, or it runs the gamut?
It runs the gamut, but I would say at this point in my career, most of the people I work with are probably between the ages of 35 and 65. Like it's a lot of successful professionals who have really incredible IQs, have climbed the corporate ladder, and then they get to this point where they're like, wow, there's something missing. And there's this, why can't I figure out how to do this thing that I quote unquote should be good at? Right? We're supposed to be good at love and relationships, and this part kills me. It's like, you know, we put so much shame on getting support around this area. Yeah, so many of my, you know, if I said, hey, Dr. Frankie, I'm going to open a new business, I'm going to hire a business coach, you'd be like, oh yeah, oh, that's awesome, of course you are. Then you'll learn how to not make those mistakes, you'll be making money faster. Cool, Eri, that makes sense. If I said, Denise, I'm going to take up tennis, I'm going to hire a tennis coach, be like, yeah, that makes sense. You'll have get the proper form. You won't screw up your shoulder or have to go back later on and learn how to do it right. You know, and if I tell somebody like, hey, we hired a relationship coach or a therapist, people are like, oh, I'm so sorry. Things must be really screwed up. Right?
Sorry that your relationship is on the rocks.
That's
It's
right.
the
You
assumption.
can't figure this out.
And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I've
so
traveled
true.
the world speaking. I've asked this to thousands of people, and I'll ask entire rooms. They'll say, okay, everyone think about how many happy, healthy, long-term couples you actually know. And I'll give people like 30 seconds to count them all.
Yeah.
At the end, okay, if you know 10 or more, raise your hand. There may be 1 or 2 maximum in an entire room. Doesn't matter the number of people in that room lately. And then I'll just jump to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. 95% of every single room except for one I've ever taught in have been between 0 and 3.
Oh,
So we
yeah,
don't
that
have
makes me
models.
We
sad.
don't have these models. That's
We don't
right.
have models, but
And
we're supposed to be good at it. And we put this pressure on ourselves, and we're not supposed to get help.
and
Like,
people professionally, like they could be very successful in their communication style professionally, right? It's very different when you're
right,
talking about an intimate relationship.
right,
Yes.
So feels so much more personal, feels so much more sensitive, triggering, all of that. I just think it's a whole
right.
different animal.
A whole different animal. And no matter what you do, but especially with, I mean, I've worked with Hollywood actors and top tech executives. And so it's like there's this all added level of privacy of like, wow, I'm supposed to be good at this. And there's added shame, that vulnerability, right? So then
Yeah.
it's like the people who can have the most influence, who could model a different way of being with the greatest visibility and impact, are not getting the support they need to make those shifts. And so this is where I love to go in and say, okay, what can we do differently? That, you know, you get to go into those big emotions and feel safe, right?
Mhm.
How do we create the safety and the freedom to be yourself and feel loved? I think that's what we're all seeking. How do we all want to feel seen, heard, and loved? And how
Right.
do we all want to feel free and safe to be ourselves and still be loved in that place? And I think it's totally possible. It just takes a new model.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you, it's like the people who need it most, right, are the ones that are not listening to this podcast.
Probably not, but maybe somebody will refer the podcast to them, right? And
Absolutely.
tune in. And that's what we hope. It's like if I'm speaking to you listeners right now, whoever's out there, if what you're hearing today on this podcast or any other podcast that you're tuning into with Dr. Frankie and Denise, it's like if you are hearing something that resonates and you think of somebody like, I wish they knew this, like trust that and send it to them. Be like, I thought of you, right?
Mhm.
And just go for it because we don't know who's going to be open to receiving that. In worst case scenario, they decide not to listen to it. But I think that if more people, if it became normal and socially acceptable for us to get more help, and it even became exciting, right, to be proactive in
Definitely.
relationships, it would change this whole world and how we connect.
It's also a
So true.
timing thing. There may be a long stretches of time where somebody's really not that open. They're so defended, right? And protective of themselves.
Yeah,
But in life, things change. We're around different people. We realize, oh, wait a minute, this is not working for us anymore. Like getting
yeah,
tired of the same patterns,
yeah,
gravitating towards the same types of people that are not, it's not, again, moving the needle. It's not fostering
right,
overall health in my life. And then they might be open and they might be receptive to something because nothing else is working. And I have all these
yeah.
years to look back and go, I gotta change something.
Yeah. And I'd work with a lot of singles too. And it's like we have this idea that our beloved is out there waiting for us. And maybe that's
Waiting.
what's happening. Maybe they're just sitting around. Like, maybe they'll show up one day. I like to imagine that they're getting ready for you, right? And at the same time, how are you getting ready for them? How are you getting ready for love? Because if you say you want to break all those patterns, we've all got our patterns. We've all got our crap, right? It's like, so if you actually want to be ready for that level of relationship that you say you want, then you got to do the work. And you don't have to wait to be in relationship to do the work. You can start learning how to deal with your emotions now. You can start learning how to communicate well now, right? There's just so much that is possible, but we have to shift our thinking around how we love.
Do you feel like people really, I mean, to see a lot of change, to be able to really practice, they have to be in relationship?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I would say you need to be willing to be vulnerable, and it helps to have another human to be vulnerable with. I know AI is coming a long way and we can have some great conversations with them, but at the same time, like,
Oh,
but a
geez.
lot of my clients, yeah, yeah. I just went, side note, I was just in Vegas speaking and I went to the Sphere. I don't know if you've seen it, it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
crazy. Inside, they've got 5 AI robots you can just go up to and have conversations with, and there is creepy. I'm like, oh man. So the future of this world, who knows? I want to be curious. I want to be curious. You want to be curious. But anyways, we, even with I've run a singles program. And so even when I'm working with my singles in that program, it's like they get to learn the skills and use them together. They have a best friend they can take those out to and work with them on it. They may have a parent that they want to practice with, or, or some of them have children and they want to get into a new relationship, right? They've been divorced for a while. Like we have all these different places we can practice. And most of the skills are foundational. Like they are how to give feedback, how to know what you want, how to actually allow yourself to receive love. Because most of us are better at giving love. It feels so good to give. It's so easy. But then when somebody tries to give you something, even a compliment, most people are like, oh, no,
Right.
you
Take it
have a
back.
nice haircut, not me. Right?
That's right. That's right. This whole thing. Yeah. Right.
Right? We deflect. It's like these are our wounds. And so, how do we just start to learn these skills now and practice them in everyday life? So that when it does show up, we're ready. And we're like, oh, yeah, we recognize that. We see that this is the healthy relationship we've been calling in. We see that this is something that we both have been getting ready for, right? You want to imagine both you and your future partner, you both are getting ready for each other. You want to meet each other, right? You don't want to be in this weird, like one person is way farther advanced in their development than the other person's like, okay, we're both growing. And when we meet each other, we'll be ready for each other.
Ideally.
Yeah, ideally.
That's often not the case. I find that there's usually somebody in the relationship that has utilized skills, feels more effective in their utilization of the skills, and the other person is kind of floundering and not getting with the program.
Yeah. So it's like, how do we get the program? And that's one thing. It goes back to the curiosity. If you want to be a happy, healthy, long-term couple, one of the big traits I see that these couples do is they stay curious and they keep growing together, right? They keep on being like, oh, okay, cool. Yes, I totally loved you 16 years ago, and I totally love you 6 years ago. I totally loved you 6 months ago, but I totally recognize that you are different people every step of the way, and so am I. And so I'm not going to keep putting you in that box. And usually that box, goes back to the trauma we had from one of our parents, right? So it's like we have to be so conscious not to do that because it's so easy. I would love to just put my husband in the box with my dad every time I get into a fight. It's like, of course you're my dad, right? It's like you're doing similar things that trigger the similar feelings. Like, let's just go with that. But I have to stop and say, this is not what we've chosen. And it's that choosing. I think another challenge is that divorce is so easy, or breaking up is so easy. And I want to be careful on how I say that word easy, but I mean, like, it's socially acceptable with it being over 50%. It's like all these things are out there. And so I think a lot of times people forget that they're choosing on a daily basis to be in a relationship with themselves and with this other person. And for my husband and I, when we got married, it was not until death do us part. We are choosing to be together so long as we're serving each other's highest good and growth. And so every year, not even on the same day, it's not like an anniversary date, but every year, sometime during the new calendar year, we'll tune in and say, hey, how is this going? Is this working? What's not working? What do we need to shift? Where do we need to put our focus and attention on? And our relationship has taken so many different forms over the years. And if it feels like we're like, this is it, we recommit and we get married again. So we've gotten married 9 times now. We just got married on the cruise ship for our 9th wedding. And we've had epic weddings all around the world on top of the world's largest Buddhist temple. We've had an Islamic wedding. We've had a wedding and all wearing like fake animal fur on a ferry boat out of Seattle. We had a Hindu wedding. So we've had lots of different types of ceremonies where we're bringing ourselves back into connection with a lot of conscious choice. That's that remembering. And we don't always want to. Our 6th year was total crap, you guys. It was terrible. Like, we were in a terrible spot. And we had these big discussions of like, what do we do with this? Our kids were old enough to be more independent. And all of a sudden our focus wasn't on surviving with young babies. We had 2 kids under 2 and a YouTube channel, and we were in a new city or country every 4 to 7 days for the beginning of the first couple of years of our kids' lives. And then we happened to come to Bali, and we were supposed to travel around Bali, Indonesia for 3 weeks. Fell in love with the place and just canceled the YouTube channel and stayed put. And then we've been there for 7 years now. But along that journey, we were so focused on things we loved, like traveling and parenting. And then all of a sudden we weren't traveling as much, and we weren't, and our kids were getting older and more independent. And so we had to look at our relationship and say, whoa, what is the state of this? Are we both growing? Are we both choosing to connect in ways that are super meaningful for us as individuals and lovers? And the answer wasn't easy. And so we decided to do something totally different. And we created what we call a relationship death ritual. And we went off to a volcano in Bali with two of our closest friends who've witnessed, all of our ups and downs. And, we have challenges too, we're human. And we really did a lot of work to be able to open ourselves up to what are the stories we're holding about each other and the projections we have. What do we need to let go of to create room for something new? And we didn't know it was going to happen, but in that process, it just created so much space and so much love. We could see each other again with fresh eyes, and it was amazing. And it's like, okay, well, I'm still in this. Let's keep going. And so it's just been such an incredible journey to remember to choose. So I invite anybody who's out there, remember, you're choosing to be in a relationship with yourself first, and tuning into that, and then choosing to be in partnership with somebody. Yeah, I've had situations where I've been like, to my husband, I'm like, I love you, but right now I don't like you. Right? And that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That's okay. But we keep coming back to the choice.
Yeah. And not take one another for granted. There's so much of that goes on, right?
So much. It's so easy, right?
And not
But
take life for granted. That's the
yeah.
other, because what I hear
Mm,
big from what you're saying is that not only have you chosen this partner, but you're choosing and creating this lifestyle that you want to live,
mm,
which a lot
yeah.
of people are so afraid of, to
Yeah.
live outside of, what they think is normal, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
you have these big
Yeah.
dreams and maybe I could, maybe I couldn't, but you stay stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very much the or mindset. Like our family it was still called the life of and family. And it's just giving people permission. Like you don't need my permission, but permission in life to have it all. Like you can have kids and travel and do meaningful work in the world and still have your own independent things you love and are passionate about and have a loving conscious relationship, right? It's like you can do all these things, but
All
so many
these
times we
things.
look at one and we decide, oh, I couldn't have that or do that because of this, instead of looking for how do we create a new game. Somebody told us rules about how life is supposed to be,
Mhm.
and at some point in time we accepted those rules and started believing them, and then we've been playing by those rules and they don't work, we're losing. So
Yeah.
instead, I just say, create your own game, create your own rules, and see what happens. And from that place, so much is possible. As my husband would say, everything is possible. So,
Everything is possible. I love
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
You have to actually recognize that there's not just one way to do things,
yeah,
right? It's like also with arguing and all the tools, there's not one way to navigate that. There's so much out there. And
yeah,
there's also so many ways to live our lives. Like just because like I'm just thinking as a early on with my kids, I have twins that are 19 now, but I always
whoa,
maintained my own personal life, like private, like adult life as a mom.
yes,
Even when my kids were tiny. I'm like,
yes,
once a week, I'm going to hang out with my friends. I'm still going dancing. I'm still going to go have
yes,
cocktails. And people would look at me like, what? And there was so
yeah,
much judgment. And I'm
so
just
much.
like, and just in terms of balance and my own mental health, it's about quality time, right? I show up for my loved ones and for my employees. It's about quality. Show up.
Got to show up for you too, right?
And then you've got to show up for yourself. That's the
Yeah.
point. It's like you've got to make time for yourself. And there's nothing
Yes.
wrong with that.
In
Yeah.
fact, it's like, what are you modeling for your kids? Because what you're doing then is what they're probably going to do, right? Or they're going to rebel against. but
Right. Oh,
but
they're
it's like,
definitely going to rebel against it for sure. That's a
right,
guarantee.
but in terms of maybe if they decide to have kids, they might think, oh, no, it's okay for me to take care of myself. I know
Hmm.
I remember my mom going out with her friends, and in a society where there's so much shame around you doing anything other than self-sacrifice all the time for your family,
Mhm.
both husbands and wives, right? It's like, or parents in general, it's like there's all this pressure on you, always going to be sacrificing. But if you modeled this, and how freaking amazing is that? They're going to grow up thinking, oh yeah, no, my mom already showed me I could do this and she still loved me, right?
That's
And she
right.
was still there. She still came home. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I am a passionate kizomba dancer, and for anybody who's not familiar with kizomba, it's like I like to say it's like African tango. Um,
Okay.
some people may disagree with that, but that's how I would describe it. And I teach at festivals all over the world around consent and boundaries in that area, and then I dance at least once a week. I run a big event in Bali for it. And my kids know Wednesday night, mom is going on her solo date night and going dancing. And that's her thing. And they know as they get excited, they'll be like, Mom, I just found a new Kizomba song. Do you want to hear it? Right? I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And they just have this ingrained in them that it's okay. And my husband models that too. You know, for him, his big outlet is going to the mountains with our dog every 3 weeks or so. So the kids know dad's been gone for 2 nights to the mountains. And that's how he takes care of himself and resources himself and comes back more grounded and able to be more present.
That's right.
Awesome. It doesn't mean that we love them any less. It means this is how we model self-care and self-love.
It doesn't mean he's abandoning you or leaving you with all the
That's
burden
right.
of
Yeah.
taking care of the house and the children. And it's how he's recharging. It's important
Yeah.
for us to have that time.
Super
So yeah,
important.
Yeah.
I echo that big time.
And way to model that for your family. That's so good.
Yeah, I didn't even really know. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was just like, I need to do this for my sanity. And I would see the people's reactions and I'm like, wow, this is why more people aren't willing to do it for themselves because we all need it, but nobody
We all
wants to
need it.
feel, especially when you're a new parent, you
Oh
don't know
my
what
Yeah.
gosh.
you're doing. And you
Yeah.
didn't come from a family that was like really that nurturing, or you didn't come, if there was a lot of trauma, it's hard to know, am I doing something wrong? Am I doing this right? I want to do better this time. And
Yes.
yeah, so all of that can be really confusing.
Mm-hmm.
We have to
Mm-hmm.
get quiet and be curious about ourselves, like figure out, okay, what is it that we need?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Mm.
sure.
So
So
good,
good.
such good stuff. Yeah. Early I had asked what a demographic, like age group, because we have a whole range, like it's
Yeah.
definitely and I just wondered if in different age groups you're seeing different challenges that come up in interpersonally in relationships, like maybe romantic relationships where they're struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I would say the core challenges are across the board for most for like across the board. But I would say there is a with people who are younger, there is still this um a lack of a sense of knowing, like true knowing who they are. And so there's this unrest that's within them and the kind of this righteous, like I should have this, or I should fight for it like this, or they should do this. And then what I love about working with people who have a little more life experience is there's this more acceptance and calm of like, this is how I am, this is who I am, I know myself. Oh, this is how they are, which in many ways can be really like it's less resistance in that way of like we have to fight for this. But it shows up differently because then they're like, well, this is how we are. It's like, okay, and
Yeah.
That's
this is
right.
how you've been
Take it or leave
behaving,
it.
and yeah, and
And
how do you want to shift that? Like,
that's
do you
right.
want to continue getting these results in this way? So we're working on the same thing with both groups, just how we go through the resistance is different. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. I mean, right,
Mm.
there's always going to be resistance there, so in argument, right? It's like
Yeah. Yep.
even if
Lots.
you're avoidant, even if you're somebody who just runs away, I mean that's just you're still there's resistance. You're just not dealing with the issue at hand.
Yeah.
You're with
Yes,
so
I'm
many.
more of the runaway historically type person, and my husband is more of the pursuer, right? So it's like, ah, and we've had to learn how do we both choose to lean in and really meet each other, and that is such an important skill set. And then talking about demographics, I would say another big difference I see that people who hold more, I'll say masculine energy, doesn't matter what your sex is, but people who hold more masculine energy oftentimes are more focused on getting a sense of feeling free, like free to be themselves in a relationship, and they feel like everything is threatened to that freedom. And then people who are more in their feminine, I see in general, are really pursuing safety. They want to feel safe in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times there's this clash of like, they think that, I can't feel free if I'm doing all things to make this person feel safe, or I can't feel safe if they're out having their freedom. And it's like, no, we can change the game. We can create our own new game. If you're playing by the rules of mainstream society, yeah, you can't do it. You're stuck. Like, you're screwed. But if you create your own new game, you create what's right for you in this moment with permission to change it. At any point in time that you both agree to change it, consent is super sexy. Being an adult and making up your own decisions and choosing the path that you want versus what was told or prescribed to you, super sexy. Like, let's
Yeah.
create that. Let's have fun creating it. Like, and we also get so serious when it comes to love. You guys, it's like, oh, we have to be like fighting for love all the time. And everything is so hard. We have to work. Yes, there's things we have to learn, but we also have to remember to play and enjoy and laugh together. And it's like we work so hard all the time, and people are carrying so much stress globally right now. And it's like we got to put it all down sometimes and just get in the flow of what would it be like if we just went to the store and got that giant thing of kids bubble bath and made an epic tower of bubbles together in the tub tonight and just laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you got little kids at home, you can't really get away, right? You've got to be really creative.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things I love to teach people is how to date each other. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to like fly to Paris every weekend, So there's so much that's possible. I like to teach people what I call nice dates. So nice stands for new, interesting, challenging, and exciting. And when we do things that are new, interesting, challenging, and exciting for both of us, it reignites those parts of the brain when we were newly falling in love, right? That new relationship energy. So how do we go back to that? How do we co-create that together and have fun in that process? And when people come into my private program, I become what I call a dating dominatrix. And I have designer dates that I've already made. And I'm just like, this is the date you're doing this week. Here's who's leading the date. Here's who's following the date. Here's your written instructions and your video instructions. There's no excuse. You can do them all from home. It's a minimum of 30 minutes, but you need to just commit to showing up and not doing the same old recipe that you've been doing, not just going to dinner and a movie, right? We need to shift these. Not having sex the same way you've been having sex. It's like we're going to shift things so that you can see each other fresh and have fun and be curious and learn and make mistakes and be awkward together. And that's okay. That's where all the memories are going to come in.
Do they do the homework?
Most of my clients do,
Oh,
and they love it.
Good clients.
I
Good
have
for
good
them.
clients.
Yeah.
I have good clients. I'm pretty picky about who I work with too.
I could imagine that it blows their minds, right? That something so simple, something so easy could have such like a major change in how they view one another.
Yeah. Huge. And I mentioned the bubble bath earlier, but if you're tuning in and you're in a relationship, you want something like, just try something wild. Like, okay, normally we eat at the dinner table. Great. Tonight, cover it with a sheet and then sit under the table and eat there. Have a little dinner fort experience, right?
Yeah.
And just that little act alone that costs you 30 seconds of your time can really change how you're going to communicate, how you're going to look at each other, how you're going to laugh and say, I can't believe we just ate dinner under the table.
That's right.
And then you'll tell a story the next later that week to your friends when you're all talking, and they'll be like, you did what? And then they're going to go home and try it. Right. And it's like, oh, we can just be this ripple effect of what new things that are possible, how to relearn love, how to play the game differently. If we just want to, we just choose to.
You have to be willing to feel silly.
Yeah. Yeah. Or break out of the mold.
Silly. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, silly or awkward. A lot of people are really afraid of being awkward.
Yeah. Because when you're an adult, you're not supposed to be that anymore. You're supposed to be, straight laced and perfect, and everything should be coiffed perfectly, and you should say the right things. And
yeah. And most of us weren't allowed to be kids when we were kids, right? It's like, don't cry, be a big boy, be a big girl, right? It's like,
suck it up.
Suck it up. So now you're an adult. Now you're supposed to still suck it up and no fun. It's like, at what point are you supposed to live life then? Like, let's change this. That sucks.
That reminds me of how many adults are running to Disneyland and Disney World for like weddings and anniversaries and things like that. Like, there's a part of us that really, wants to return to being playful and silly. So even if it feels awkward and uncomfortable, I think there is a silver lining underneath there. Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of the fear when you're thinking about being silly or awkward, right? You're thinking about, oh, what's it going to be like to climb under this table? Like, what are people going to say? And then once you're there, it's like your nervous system relaxes and you're like, I'm in it. It's okay. It's weird, but it's kind of cool too.
Yeah. Yes. And you're doing it with somebody else that's in it too. You know, that's
Yeah.
also embracing that discomfort, which creates bonding, connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I love it.
everybody who's listening, go home and try this. Choose one of them, and then email this team and let them know what you thought, or make
Let us
comments.
know. Yeah.
Dinner tonight under the table with the sheet and a fort.
So any last like thought, Eri, like that's like you feel like really powerful for your students, your followers, your listeners that really you yeah.
I would say, just in summary, I would just say stay curious and have fun. Everything is possible if we would choose to really learn love. But you have to choose to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can folks find you?
Yeah. So all sorts of ways, but the easiest is probably going to relearnlove.com. And there's everything from how to find me to come speak at your corporation, how to be a part of my upcoming singles group. The next one's starting in a couple weeks. How to work with me privately for coaching. And there's a bunch of, do-it-yourself programs. So if you want just access to some fun dates, there's a program called Rekindle. It's just a bunch of fun dates. If you want to learn how to navigate conflict, there's a program called Clash to Calm. And then soon, the class I teach mostly around the world is called what is it? We just retitled it. Basically, it's everything I would say about Relearn Love and how you can change the game. So all those things are there or are coming up soon. The newest class will be launched within the next month. And you can always reach out to me on Instagram. I'm Coach Eri Kardos, and I'm here. My team is so willing and awesome to welcome people in and how we can support you best. And if you don't even know, you're like, I don't know, I just felt like I connected with you. Sweet. Reach out and say hi. I love to connect with people. That's my passion. The connection is so sexy. So just say hi. I'd love to hear what's going on and whatever landed for you in this podcast and where you're at in your love and relationship journey.
Wonderful, Eri. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You.
Yes, I'm so glad we could do this. You both are a delight.
Why, thank you. Likewise. And thank you
Yeah,
all our listeners
Yeah,
that are all over the world. Thank you, everyone. Kisses. Hugs.
Bye.
Bye.